Imagine you're mopping brass at a sleepy shooting range when a Navy SEAL bursts in, bleeding, and shoves his sniper rifle into your hands. They're here! The gates slam. The radios die, and Sarah Carter, no badge, no backup, must decide if hope can aim true under fire. Sarah Carter liked rooms that held their breath. The shooting range did that after hours. Spent casings slept in the trays. Targets hung with polite holes. Rubber mats smelled like sun-warmed tires. She pushed the broom and counted lines in the dust. Her watch face was cracked. It had been cracked for years. The second hand stuttered over the fracture and kept going. She wore it anyway. It was a small lie against time. She told herself the lie once each evening, and the room agreed to hold still. The range office hummed with a single cheap fan. Her wallet sat open by the till, empty as a promise. 2 receipts, a bus card with a corner torn off. She had meant to feel bad about that, but the feeling had wandered away and never returned. The broom made a shy sound. She followed it all the way down lane 7. She stooped, picked a thin copper disc, and stood again. Outside, the night pressed a shoulder to the windows. The road beyond was dusty even after dark. Small towns wear their roads like old coats. She was rubbing a fingerprint off a glass divider when the door snapped. Not opened, struck. Wood shouted and flew wide. A man staggered in. Tan uniform, salt and pepper stubble, eyes like someone had taken the color out for safekeeping. He held a long rifle by the forend. He was careful with it even now. He was not careful with his own body. He bled in a slow, irritated way that suggested he'd asked the blood to stay and it had refused. "Lock it," he said. His voice was quiet and broke only at the end like a branch under snow. Sarah didn't move. Her hands had become objects in the room. He crossed to her and laid the rifle across her palms. The weight surprised her. It wasn't heavy. It wasn't light. It was exactly the weight of its purpose. "I need your help," he said. "Who are you?" She managed. "Just a guy who ran out of time." He glanced at her watch. Saw the crack. Smiled with one side of his mouth. Figures. Outside, an engine idled, then another. Headlights braided on the walls. A third light made a thin white square and started crawling. "They cut the comms," he said. He had his breath back now. He moved with a kind of borrowed calm. "Power will go next. Then they'll think no one will see them. They like to think that." "Who?" "Men who don't pay for what they take." He nodded at her empty wallet on the counter as if it was a map she and he both knew how to read. He guided her to the firing bench. He slid a sandbag over with his forearm. The rifle lay waiting, patient like a dog that knows a new voice must still mean walk. "I'm not," she started. "You tidy here," he said. "You watch details." "You'll do." He knelt beside the door. He eased it to and braced a chair under the handle. Then he was at her elbow, pointing with 2 fingers, never touching the metal. Across the lanes, through the far window, past the parking lot, above the chain-link fence, there was a ridge. Not much of one. Just a dark line where the land had decided not to lie flat all the way to the horizon. A glint on that ridge blinked. Not steady. Not random. A heartbeat that wasn't hers. She slid behind the scope because there was no other place in the moment to stand. Glass pulled the world close and made it honest. The ridge came forward and became earth. The glint turned into a square of mirror wired to a stake. Left of it, a rock. Right of it, scrub. "Do you see the spotter?" he asked. "I see a trick," she said. He looked pleased. "Good, that's one." Another engine laughed. Gravel ticked against the siding like impatient fingertips. "What do I call you?" she asked. "Dax," he said. He said it like a borrowed name. Like it lived in his pocket with a coin he never spent. "Sarah," she said. He nodded. "Sarah Carter," he said, as if reading it from the cracked glass on her wrist. Something moved behind the mirror. A darker dark. She held her breath without meaning to. The rifle settled. Her heartbeat learned the quiet of new snow. "Take the shot if you have it," Dax said. His voice didn't push. It allowed. She thought of the empty wallet. The rent due. The bus card with a corner gone. She thought of how little she had and how heavy this small chance felt anyway. In the scope, the mirror shook. A face flickered behind it like a fish under ice. She blinked. Her lashes brushed the rubber eye cup. When her eyes opened, the face was clearer. A boy. 14, maybe. Holding the mirror with both hands. Someone's sleeve yanked his arm hard, and the square of light jumped. Sarah froze. Dax's fingers hovered over the bench. Outside, the engines deepened. On the ridge, the boy looked straight toward the range. His mouth shaped a word she couldn't hear. He raised his free hand, and behind him a muzzle broke the scrub and swung like a pendulum toward the office window, toward Sarah's eye in the glass. "Now," Dax said. Sarah's finger tightened. The room held its breath, and the lights went out. Dark arrived like someone throwing a coat over a birdcage. The fans quit. The humming stopped. What little sound was left had edges. Sarah didn't pull the trigger. She had been about to be a different person than she was. Then the world snapped the pencil in two. Dax moved before the silence finished falling. He swam through the dark to the door and gathered it under one hand. He listened through the wood as if it was a seashell he knew. "Power's cut," he whispered. "Back up?" She shook her head and remembered he couldn't see that. "No," he nodded, almost grateful. Simpler then. She found the rifle again by its steadiness. Her cracked watch glowed. It had a glow so faint it was mostly memory. The second hand ticked against the fracture and stuck. It didn't move again. She pressed her thumbnail to the glass and felt the cold circle hold. "Great night to stop," she murmured. "Time isn't your enemy," Dax said. "The decisions are." Headlights shuffled outside. She could taste dust. It had a flavor like pennies and old paper. A voice called in the lot, loud and busy with itself. Another replied, lower. A coin dropped into a deep jar. Dax's breath made a small white line in the cold pane. He wiped it away with the back of his wrist. "You ever shoot?" he asked. "Targets once, twice. You hit?" Paper doesn't complain. He passed her something small. A coin? No, a dog tag. Stiff little sheet of metal stamped with letters that looked like they had been hammered on a ship deck. He hooked a thin wire to it. It became an earpiece. It was an odd little thing. A whisper machine disguised as a name. He tapped his own ear. "Left channel," he said. "Say something." Something. Good. Static was a tiny ocean that lived in her head now. "Why hand your rifle to a stranger?" Sarah asked. "Because the other choice is giving it to myself," he said. "And I'm losing blood." She smelled it then. Iron and salt and the hint of a penny rubbed between fingers. "Where?" "Later." The boy on the ridge kept living in her eye even without the scope. She could feel the angle where his arm had trembled. She could feel the pull on his sleeve. "Who uses a kid?" she asked. "The kind who think fear is a tool like pliers," Dax said. "Hold it enough and it takes the shape of your hand." Sarah crawled along the bench. Her knee found a wrench someone had left beneath the stall. It banged once. Outside, a voice paused. Then a new voice laughed. The laugh said, "We can always be louder." Dax touched her shoulder. 2 quick taps. Move. They slid behind the thickest steel divider and crouched. The room's shapes were now large animals that would not step on them if they were quiet. Sarah breathed through her mouth. Her tongue tasted cleaning solvent and long days. "Gates?" Dax whispered. "Locked at 9. It's past. Keys?" "In my bag." "And your bag?" "On the counter." "Of course it is," he said and almost smiled. He eased to the counter and came back with the bag in his teeth like a fox. He poured it gently between them. Keys, receipt copies. A tiny notebook with a cardboard cover. Her empty wallet landed last and lay open like a bird stunned against a window. Dax pinched it by a corner. "Picture?" "None." "Cash?" "Wouldn't know what to do with it," she said. He left it open. He did not tuck it away from sight as a kindness. He let it be honest, and somehow that felt kinder. A red dot grew on the far wall, a small calm star. It walked to the right, then to the left. It climbed. It steadied. Sarah's breath shortened. Dax looked down at the small star and then at her watch. He held the watch face up to the red dot. The dot swam over the crack in the glass and split in two. It made a little figure 8. He tilted the watch and the dot slid away and lost interest. "Lasers love flat," he said. "Break flat. Live longer," she nodded. Her fingers remembered the idea even after her thoughts let it go. A tire crunched near the door. Footsteps shuffled. Someone jiggled the handle and then swore quietly. The chair held. The door made a small wooden sound as if it was considering retirement. "Back exit." "Through the tool room," she said. "Past 8. Keeps to the wall," he nodded. He listened again. He pressed his palm to the floor where a strip of concrete ran colder than the rest. "Drains," he said, approving. She pointed through the dark. He began to move. A voice floated in from the lot. Clearer now. The words sat in the air like knives on a tray. "Sarah," it called. "Sarah Carter." Her name was a feather flicked under her ribs. She stopped breathing because she wanted to learn what her lungs did when left alone. Dax watched her face. He tilted his head like a dog hearing a whistle. The voice resumed. Softer now, closer. Your rent's late, it said and chuckled. Maybe we settle it tonight. Sarah reached by instinct for the rifle. Dax placed it into her hands like a teacher returning a pencil. He did it without looking. Don't let them choose what you are, he said. His whisper had a wire in it now. He was leaving himself and making instruments out of the rest. Through the tool room, he breathed. I'll mislead them at the front. Meet me by the back drains. If I'm not there, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. There was only one ending there. He slid toward the door. He lifted the chair with a ghost of sound. He raised his empty hands high. Fingers spread as if showing a magician's audience he had nothing up his sleeves. He opened the door. Light from a truck swept over him and pinned him in plainness. A shape rose behind the truck bed. The muzzle in its hands found the middle of Dax's chest. Sarah's cracked watch did not tick, and the rifle in her hand suddenly felt like the only voice left in the room. Sound returned all at once. A shout, a horn, boots hitting gravel like rain on a tin roof. Sarah didn't aim at a person. She aimed at a headlight. She squeezed and felt the rifle cough. The glass burst and light fell apart into little mean pieces. Dark rushed back to fill the hole. The yard erupted. Someone fell. Someone swore in a language that tried not to be heard. The truck stuttered and rolled backward like a lazy animal who'd been asked twice. Dax dove right. He moved like he had memorized gravity. Go, he said into her ear, and this time she obeyed. Tool room. Low shelves. Oil smell. A window that had never agreed to open easily. She shoved it with her shoulder and it complained, then accepted reality and slid. Night air pressed down like a hand on a book. Beyond the chain link, the dusty road ran pale as a scar. It went out past the range, past the dead cottonwoods, past the unlit billboard that still promised fireworks in June. It knew how to leave. She'd walked that road as a kid. She remembered how dust lifts to meet you, not the other way around. How it coats your socks and makes a sound like someone whispering the same word again and again until it stops being a word. She slipped through the window. Her feet found dirt. She kept low and let the building be her spine. Behind her, inside the range, the office door slammed. Voices went from confident to confused to angry, which are neighbors who always visit in that order. Sarah, the caller sang again. He liked the taste of her name. He dressed it in something soft and made it walk. She reached the back corner. The drain ditch opened there. It was a shallow cut with concrete ribs and a trickle in its gut. The trickle smelled like pennies, too. Dax, she whispered into the dog tag wire. Nothing. She swallowed. Dax? Static turned its head and pretended not to hear. She dropped into the ditch. The rifle settled along the concrete like it belonged there. She crouched and looked back. Heads moved beyond the windows. A flashlight shook. The beam licked the floor and climbed a wall. It swallowed a chair and let it go. She had to cross the open to reach the north fence. Past that fence, the dusty road. Past the road. The old orchard and its trees that remembered fruit even when there was none. Open ground asked questions she hated. But there wasn't a better quiz. She thought of her empty wallet. She folded that thought in half and used it as a wedge. She set it between fear and motion and pushed. Her sneakers found gravel. Gravel found voice, a shout. Then another. She broke into a run that wasn't pretty. Her arms did not know what to do and asked her hands for advice. Her hands were busy with the rifle. They offered none. A gun barked behind her. It barked twice more like a dog counting. Bullets found nearby ground and pecked. She slid on the last yard and hit the fence soft with her shoulder. It chewed a row of small diamonds into her jacket. She grabbed for the top, barbed, silly, obvious, and then saw the gap at the bottom where the fence had forgotten itself and pulled its hem up. She shoved the rifle through. She shoved herself after. The fence tugged her hair as if to say stay. She said no without words and rolled. The dusty road lifted her like a tide. Powder climbed to her knees. It made a curtain around her legs. It made her lighter. Headlights deepened from the south. Not one vehicle, 2, 3. They came slow, like rich men to a part of town they thought would wait for them. Voices swam behind her at the fence. Where? North. Go. She ran the road's shoulder. Her lungs burned like a kettle left on. Her watch face tapped against her wrist bone and stayed still. The second hand watched her run and didn't judge. A shape appeared ahead. A shape on the road's edge with tires bare to their belts. The church van. She knew its dent. She knew its side window patched with tape. Mr. Huerta's van. The youth group. Wednesday nights and cardboard pizza and hymns sung like secrets. The van was empty now. The doors yawned. A bag of half-inflated soccer balls leaked a tired smell. On the dash, a small paper angel hung by a string. It spun once and stopped. Dust filmed its face. Sarah felt the world tilt. Why was it here? Why now? A new voice broke into her ear. Left, Dax said as if he had never been gone. Left now. She obeyed without thinking and dropped over the road's lip into the shallow ditch that ran parallel. The ditch caught her and left her ribs alone. What is this? She whispered. Diversion, Dax said. Kids were safe and gone an hour ago. But someone wants their absence to look like presence. They paint decoys because it steals minutes, and minutes are a currency. Where are you? Making friends. Gunfire cracked back near the range. They don't like my jokes. Headlights crested close. She pressed into the ditch. The rifle lay along her forearm. She stared through grass that had learned how to be dead and kept practicing. Trucks rolled past. Black sides, no plates. Each carried a crate strapped with bands that wanted to snap. She smelled fertilizer. She smelled something else that wore a cleaner's perfume to confuse the nose. The last truck slowed. The window slid down. The driver's profile turned. He had a coin-bright ring that smiled even in the low light. His eyes walked across the ditch and kept walking. They sped on. They were not going to the range. They were going past toward town. Dax, she whispered. They're headed toward the substation, he said. Toward the quiet. Sirens lived a long way off and had not signed up for night school. She rose from the ditch. She knew the turnoff they'd take. A smaller road, dustier if possible, that curled like a patient snake toward the power yard. She pictured high fences and humming transformers. She pictured light going out across blocks like eyelids. We cut them off, she said. We? Dax said. You, Sarah, me, Blood. The math's no good. You hand me a rifle and talk about math? Silence that meant yes, she checked the van. The keys were in the ashtray because Mr. Huerta believed the world, and some parts of it believed him back. She slid into the seat and felt the fabric remember 100 small trips. She turned the key. The engine coughed. It took offense, thought about it, then chose mercy and turned. She checked her cracked watch. Still stopped. Good. Time wasn't here to help or argue. She peered at the road ahead. Dust lifted to meet her. She was about to pull out when a shadow climbed into the passenger seat and closed the door gently, as if not to wake the upholstery. Drive, the man said, and smiled with a silver ring. He held something low and bright that ate and gave back the moonlight in careful bites. Sarah's hands found the wheel. Her feet had opinions. The rifle lay across the back bench like a sleeping dog with one eye open. Sarah Carter, the man said, making it rhyme with something he could spend. Let's go talk about what you owe. And from the speaker in her ear, Dax's voice arrived thin and late. Don't let him choose what you are. She drove. The van shook like it had old songs in its tires. The man with the ring watched her hands as if they were cards. He rested the bright thing on his thigh. It wasn't a gun. It was a knife that had opinions about the night. You called me by name, she said. Small town. Big debts. His teeth didn't show when he smiled. It made the smile seem tired of doing that job. What do I owe? Less than some. More than you have. He picked up her empty wallet from the cup holder. He had taken it without her noticing. He opened it and let the absence inside be air. See, he said. It's already paid in a way. What's in the crates? She asked. He chuckled. Hope for someone else. Headlights made ghosts on scrub and old fence posts. Her cracked watch face caught a little moon and gave it back wrong, like it had a stutter. The road forked. Left to the substation. Right to the old radio tower nobody remembered until they needed weather reports. She turned right. The man didn't correct her at first. He seemed curious what story she thought she was in. Missed your turn, he said finally. No, she said. It missed me. He took in the tower's silhouette. How high? High enough if it listens. She pumped the brakes hard so the van nosed down. His knife jumped. She grabbed his wrist with her left hand and turned into the skid. and let the van drift into the turnout where weeds learned patience. The knife's point made a polite hello with the dash and stuck. He swore once precisely. She flicked the door up, slid out, and ran. He followed. He moved like a man whose bones knew dust. She reached the fence at the tower base. It had a lock that wore rust like jewelry. She didn't have the key. She had hands. She had a broken watch. She wrapped the watch's band around the lock's body and yanked. The band snapped. The watch face popped free. It fell, glass down, into dust and made a sound like a coin deciding its flip. The lock didn't care. She laughed once.